My name is Shoshone Mai, and I'm a former school teacher in America. I was an art teacher, and by Radharani's mercy, I was brought to Vrindavan in 1992 to work in the Gurukula, and I worked there for a number of years. Even though my background was in art, the need at that time was helping children learn English. The desire was for the Nepali and Indian children in the school at that time to come up in their English-speaking abilities. So my focus then became helping children learn to read and write and spell in the English language, plus some other subjects that were taught at the time. At that time, there was no connection with the formal government, the ICSE program. Teachers were allowed to use as much Krishna consciousness as they could imagine. So, but again, the mercy of Radharani, the head mistress at the time, Chandrika Devi Dasi, a Prabhupada disciple, had studied in America under Spalding herself. Ramada Spalding has developed the system that we used then, and I was fortunate enough to develop. And Chandrika used to say, there is no other way to learn besides Spalding, and she had worked with the lady herself. And over the years, with some input from people, there was another teacher in the school group, Rashad, who also studied the Spalding method, not under Spalding, but done seminars in America. And little by little, I picked up more. I started adding my own features as time went on. And later, as I got older, I retired from the Gurukula, and I still needed to generate some income. And I continued in my room here, where we are now, in a situation that I think is very adaptable to homeschooling parents, because I set it up with that intention in mind, that we would have 1 or 2 parents present, and we would have 1 or 2 children at the most present. And my focus was on 3 to 5-year-olds, and any children that were coming with catch-up needs, children that were behind in mathematics or behind in reading and writing in the English language. So the situation, the whole room was designed for ideally 2 parents at the most, or 1 and 1 or 2 children. And again, I focused on, just will have to be quiet, put your pencil down and listen. Then we focused again on getting the children completely equipped for school. I had read that in America, in Yellowstone, there was a Montessori school that was so effective that by the time the children in 1st grade, they knew all their mathematics operations, they could read and write and spell and do everything. And I was inclined to be inspired by revolutionary methods wherever they were found. So I decided, well, if someone's doing it, let's try it. Whatever the possibility, we should aim for that level of expertise in our teaching, and the children should also be able to realize their full potential. So for a number of years, I taught that way, and we had a few students that were completely illustrious. We had 1 child, and it should reassure you, homeschoolers, we had 1 child who started with me at 3 years and 4 months. Within 4 months, she was decoding the menu at the MBT, and then the family moved back. They were going back and forth between England and Vrindavan, very well-to-do, very cultured, Indian-bodied family. And within 2 years, the mother, who came and learned the system as we did with the children, kept it up. So that's why I'm encouraging parents to come watch and learn, because even if the school doesn't offer it, the parent can supplement with the method. And I credit really the mother more than myself. I mean, I credit obviously Krishna, and of course the system, but the mother. She was determined, and on her own, she continued the system with the child while they were in England. They decided to school the child back in India, and they enrolled her in a very costly school in Gurgaon, Pathway School. It was just opening, an international school that was using the 7 intelligences philosophy as their foundation. And they tested Krishna Priya at 5. She came in at 5, and she was reading at the upper 5th grade level. And they could not possibly believe that a child could read that well unless if she were a prodigy. And they tested her in other areas, and they said, no, something's different. So those people came here and wanted to learn Spalding and invited me to help them implement in their school, which after 3 seminars there we did. And from what the principal has subsequently told me, all of the 4-year-olds in their school read. So there's definitely evidence, not only from other people, non-devotees who use Spalding, but Spalding amongst devotees who've had faith in it and have been determined enough to persist. There's enough evidence that I think any of you parents or teachers who are working with small groups of Krishna conscious setting of children or your own child at home. That I think if you imbibe and adopt the method, you will experience similar results. So I've been asked again, it was Aruda Mataji, the one who had gotten to Melbourne with her son riding the line. She phoned me and asked me to send some CDs of my video slideshow of the phonogram. And I put together a packet for them, and I was thinking, well, if they're interested, I'll help them. You know, wherever we see a little spark, as Prabhupada would say, we fan it. So they were interested. So the result of that was Sri Yashoda has come, and we've invited Sevamurti Radha to come with her boys, so that we could then document this. And by the grace of Sri Ananta Das from Bombay, we're able now to capture some of these little clips for the benefit of other parents, homeschooling parents. Hare Krishna. These are all the books that I recommend. Art of Teaching, and Writing on the Right Side of the Brain, and Small Thing. All the books that I found to be very helpful. I just, did an index on that. And this is really amazing. Are we being videoed right now?
Yeah.
Okay. This is, I'm going to put this on. It's an amazing, amazing sheet. This is called, I called it, I've given a name, the anatomy of an interactive textbook. This was a textbook for a homeschooling project. I had one boy here, Vrindavan, who was autistic. And his parents were from California, Indian body. They came here from California, and they brought really expensive textbooks. It was like the top series of homeschooling books you could buy. I think each book was about $100, if you can imagine. Each book was $100. So from the book on science, I've learned to be on the lookout for tips that good programs use, and then we adopt them. So in their book, they had all of these little icons and all these little tips for how the book could help you in an interactive way. So I put that into a little chart. And here we have how you gear up and how you challenge children to find out or what's next. And you can use these tips as motivators in your own teaching. So this was all in that one science textbook. And on the back, I added some of their different systems for experimenting skills, thinking critical skills, graphics organizers, and then I added Krishna's lotus feet. In other words, this was on the law of application and how to be Krishna conscious in everything you see, whatever you see. Well, Krishna was behind that. Obviously, Krishna gave these people the intelligence, and how can we use this? So we have handouts on that, and we have handouts on how to evaluate your teaching. And this is either through other teachers, the students, your standards, through self-assessment. You know, this is coming from a book we're photocopying for you, from Bruce Wilkinson. And then we have, this is brilliant. Every teacher should have to abide by this. This is from the same book, Teaching Behavior Inventory, and it classifies all the major areas that a teacher should be cognizant of, and the sub-points, and a checklist from 1 to 5. Do I do this? Do I do this? Do I do this? Wonderful. Good way to check your teaching methods. Wonderful checklist. And this is a plain, what should we put on probably now, a lesson plan sheet. How to set up a lesson plan. And then on another page, the same idea is done with the sample. And these were from our VIHE training course. So we have, Russ Mandel taught that years ago. So we have this here, and a sample of how it's filled in for a lesson. So you'll get an idea, and you'll have a blank you can pass out to and try it. These were done in our assessment. We all had to do a presentation for our final score and use this, fill it in, submit it before we made the presentation. That way the assessors could see how well we were organized and if we followed the organization. Then this is, this is wonderful. On one sheet, both sides, the 7 Intelligences by Gardner, and how they would, an example of how to use them in one lesson. And on the other side, the 6 Levels of Thinking by Bloom. the taxonomy, and what the vocabulary is for the teacher, what the student should do, and you'll see knowledge, comprehension, application, just what we talked about yesterday, analysis, all of that is explained. This, I need to get more copies of. This is brilliant Australian. It's a developmental continuum from the time a child is 2 up until he's proficient. And they have it in 4 subjects: spelling, writing, reading, and speaking. It's brilliant. It's Australian. I tell you, the Australians do have philosophical standard that is extremely high. So these are big, large sheets, 2 sides, and you can use it to see, is this child functioning at a particular level, and what strategies do I use to teach him at that level? This is a little from another creative writing book. A lot of teachers are interested in creative writing. Again, you see the circles with the eyelashes. So we get little children how to organize papers nicely. And then this is a mind map I did for the BIG, and we use it for other children too. Essay writing, and how to go about thinking, planning, and actually implementing the steps, process writing steps in your own essays. So we have many copies of all this now. So we just need to get it collated. Okay? Hare Krishna. We're going to be following the Writing Road to Reading. This is the book that encompasses the entire Spalding method for teaching speech, spelling, writing, and reading. And if we take a look at the cover of any book, we can understand what we will find within. So in this book, we'll say the proven research-based method that has helped millions of children for more than 40 years, expanded, updated, and easy to use, significantly improves student classroom performance, dramatically increases standardized test scores for classroom, home, special education, and ESL instruction. So here again, you should see here what is relevant to you. Those of you who are homeschooling, and some of you who have special education needs for one reason or another, and ESL instruction. The author is Romualdus Bishop Spalding, and Spalding is now the name that's used on the phonogram system, the Spalding phonograms. Okay, she's the one who developed it. And on the book here, you'll see all of the testimonials of very qualified people in the field of language who have a proven and endorsed method. Okay. So what we're going to be doing now, since we have the children here, and just to make it easy for them, we're going to be doing the enactments of the explanations on how to sit, how to hold a pencil, how to hold a paper, and then later with just the adults, we'll be focusing on the philosophy, the information on the background. So now in the first section of the book, which is called the spelling lesson, we have many, many topics incorporated for that lesson. And the first one begins with the most essential things. And that is, how should the child be prepared to learn? So, first of all, I'm going to read these things out loud. Clear the desk. All right, we have the desk clear. Nothing else. We have obviously our speaker here. Clear the desk of books and materials not needed. It's very important. We don't want to work on a cluttered surface. Second, all right, children, listen. Sit with your hips against the back of a chair. Now, we don't have that facility here, but that does mean we should sit with our back straight, like this. Okay? All right. Feet flat on the floor. No, I'm just following the book, so that any of you who ever get this book, you can see that we're following actually what's recommended for the best results. Nothing in this book is whimsical or arbitrary. Everything in this book is scientifically supported. Okay, and we're on page number 12, under the title Lessons, Procedures, and Why This Method Works. So we'll be seeing here, everything is very specifically explained. That's why we're reading it out loud, okay? Next, keep 2 inches between the body and the desk. Obviously, you don't want to be too close, and you don't want to be too far away. If you're too close, you'll fall asleep, and if you're too far away, you won't be able to reach. So that was the third thing. First thing, clear the desk. Second thing, sit with your back straight. If you have a chair, have your back up against the chair. And it says the straight spinal column supports the head. If the head is bent over, it's heavy. the child gets tired and may even fall asleep. Right? Next, it says lean forward just enough to see the paper, but keep the head high. Let the chair carry the weight of the body. Do not let the head fall forward, because its heavy weight would then be carried by the neck and the back muscles. So if the head goes forward, then the neck and the back muscles have to carry the head. But if it's on the spinal, if it's straight, then the spinal column supports it. It makes sense, good sense.
Yes.
And you found too in the classroom, children were more attentive when they sat up like that. Next point. Place both forearms on the desk. Okay, so both of your forearms are on the desk. Let's move you down a little bit for now. There we go. With the elbows just off the edge. We don't want your elbows on the table. And comfortably close to the body. Okay, that's good. Okay. Good. Comfortable? Are you comfortable? Very good. And sitting up straight sometimes is a little bit of a problem for children, but it will be such a big benefit to you if you can maintain that posture. Next point. Use one hand for holding the pencil and writing. Okay, so if you're right-handed, you're going to use your right hand. Okay. And the wrist should be straight, and the whole hand and arm should be below the baseline on which you write. In other words, if you're writing on a particular line, it makes sense. The pencil and the hand are below the baseline. Never use the writing hand to hold the paper. In other words, don't try to hold your paper with the hand. What will happen? The paper will slip. Next point. Place the hand that does not hold the pencil across the top edge of the paper to hold it steady, or to move it back and forth and up and down as needed. So your left hand is actually there to move the paper or the book as needed. Okay? Very good. So you can put your hand across the top of the book like that. And if the book needs to be moved up, or if the book needs to be moved down, or if the book needs to be moved to the left or to the right, you'll find this on your computer or on your little cell phone, right? You can move the scroll up, scroll down, or go left and right with your cursor. So the hand does that. It acts in that fashion. Keep the side edge of the paper and the arm of the hand that holds the pencil parallel, like two rails of a railroad track. Okay, so it says keep the side edge of the paper and the arm of the hand that holds the pencil parallel. So that means your right hand, if you're right-handed, your arm and the paper should be parallel, right? Your paper should not be at a different angle, like 90 degrees, and your arm at a 45. Basically, your paper will probably be almost, if not exactly, at a 45-degree angle. This is an optimum situation for proper writing. Okay, now you see the children now are demonstrating. And in the book, again, it's on page 12, at least in this edition. This was the 5th edition of the book, under the section Lessons, Procedures, and Why This Method Works. Right. So we have it ready. Now we'll review very quickly. Shri Yashoda, would you like to explain what you just heard? All right, just so we get, again, we want to maintain our interactive methods that we discussed yesterday. Go ahead.
So the edge of the book and the arm, the writing arm need to be parallel, like train tracks. The left hand is on top, and it's the left hand that moves the book up and down, side to side. So the feet are flat on the floor, sitting up straight, so that the head is balanced easily on the spinal column. You can lean slightly in. 2 inches gap between the desk and the body. And if you were to have the back of the chair, your hips would be
right up against. It said here, it said sit with the hips against the back of the chair, feet flat on the floor, and back straight, with head high. The straight spinal column supports the head. And what was the first point?
everything is clear.
Right, the desk should be clear about unnecessary materials. A cluttered desk creates a cluttered mind, so you have to keep the surface simple. All right? Do you understand too? You want to repeat for everybody too? Repetition is essential. Later we'll be discussing the Collins model of instruction. Repetition, articulation is essential, and it is also, you saw in our quote, the Ospono we mentioned. All right, go ahead.
First, the table should be clear. It should not be cluttered. Unnecessary things should not be there. Whatever is needed only those things should be there. Then we should
We tell the children also, so
you have to sit straight. How do you sit, Prana? How do you sit? Straight. With the hips touching the back of the chair, and our spinal cord should be straight and head should be very straight. So good balance it. And then a 2-inch gap should be there between you and the table. How do you sit? Leave some gap. Leave some gap. Bit back, little bit. See how I sit. And feet should be straight on the floor. And put the hands on the table. And elbows should not be touching the table. Elbows should not be there on the table. And the notebook should be at 45-degree angle. And the writing hand and the notebook line should be parallel, like the railway track parallel. Like this line. I say run this.
Almost a 45 degree.
Almost 45 degree. And the left hand, the hand with which the person is not writing, it should hold the paper.
Right. And you can see it illustrated in the book.
Yes.
The example in the book on page 11. No, I'm sorry. I think first on page 13 we see a left-handed child, right? And then we see a right-handed child. Again, the model in the picture, feet flat on the floor. Picture of the left hand holding the paper. With the left-handed child, everything's in reverse. Okay, the right hand holds the paper, feet flat on the floor, proper sitting posture. The brilliant thing about the Spalding method is that everything is clearly explained. Nothing is left to chance. And I remember in reading one of the other books on education, Bruce Wilkinson said if you want a perfect product, then you have to have a perfect process. So whenever I see a system that insists on precision at every stage, then we're more likely to have a good result. Hare Krishna. Your uncle's got a very important thing to consider in our education is how we treat our equipment. And how we treat our equipment, I think, reflects our consciousness. If we treat all of our things with respect and care, it shows that we appreciate what Krishna has given us for our learning. And I've noticed sometimes children are perhaps unaware of the importance of the proper care of their materials. So we do not find this particular instruction in the Spalding method, but I do want to take a moment to explain how to turn a page and how to treat a book and why we do that. And even in a book I have on speed reading by Peter Kump, it's an instructional method on increasing your reading rate, he explains how to turn a page even for rapid reading. And he does not use the methods you see so often. People just start pushing the paper, bending the corners, and after one day, the book looks as though it's ready for the bin. So if a book is treated nicely, it can look brand new for years. And because, again, books are, they're an expansion of Goddess Saraswati. They're actually learning materials that have been provided for our use. And if we're devotees, we know that they're expansions for service for Krishna. They're the property of Srila Prabhupada and the property of Lord Krishna. So we would want to treat materials just as carefully in learning as we do if we're worshipping the deity. These are gifts from the Lord for our benefit. So we elevate our consciousness by showing regard for these gifts, treating them nicely. All right? Just think at one time people didn't have paper. Not too many years ago they didn't have books. We're actually very fortunate, so we should not abuse that privilege. All right, this is how we ask children to treat the book. All right, first of all, we do not allow the book to fall on the floor. Right? The floor is where we walk, our feet are not clean. And even Srila Prabhupada used to pick an ordinary book up from the floor and then touch it to his head. It wasn't even necessarily a book on Shastra. He recognized the value of paper and a book. Okay? So again, we do not keep our books on the floor. We keep them on a clean surface or on a mat. All right? So what is the first principle, Sarvagya, about a book? What's the first thing that we have to do with the book?
We don't have to keep it on the floor.
Right, we don't throw it on the floor, we don't let it fall on the floor. We always keep it clean. And why do we keep the book clean?
Because a book has also consciousness.
Right, it does in the spiritual world, right? And why else? It's a gift from whom? Who gives us?
Krishna.
Krishna, right? Krishna provides us with materials for learning. All right. So we want to be very grateful, just as we take care of our beads and our bead bags and our deities. We don't want to mistreat the materials Krishna has given us for learning. All right, now we're going to have a little demonstration, which then you will follow for how to turn the pages of a book. Now, so often we see people just going like this and bending the pages right away and quickly doing that, and the pages all get creased and the edges get turned up, and after just 1 minute, the book looks as though it needs to be thrown away. Not a very nice way to treat a book, is it? So this method that I'm showing you, I was taught as a child, and now I can show you books for accelerated reading that teach people how to do the same thing. Only they use the left hand to turn the pages and the right hand to use their hand. So this is how we turn the page of a book. Are you all watching carefully? We lift the paper at the top, right? We put the thumb on the top of the page on the upper right hand corner, and with our index finger and our middle finger, we carefully pick up the page. We don't push the page, because what happens if we push the page? What will happen, Sabaka?
The book will cry.
The book will cry, yes, it'll become dog-eared, right? The pages will get creased and the book will look shabby. So we put the thumb on the upper corner. Sarvagya, you want to try that first, then Pranav will do later, okay? Put your thumb here, you pick up the paper with your index finger and your middle finger, and then you slide the 2 fingers under the page, and then slide your whole hand under the page, and you carefully turn the page over. And then you resume the position, putting your left hand at the top, and you're ready to begin writing on the next page. All right? So let us do that now. I'm going to help. I'll be coaching now. We'll be coaching Pranav. He's very little, so he can put down his pencil. Okay, Pranav, I will explain it again. Put your thumb on the upper right-hand corner. Take your first finger and your middle finger. Pick up the page. Slide your paper hand and put it down. Now put your arm across the top of the page, and you're ready to get to work on the next page. Okay, Sarvagya, would you demonstrate that? Okay, put your thumb.
First we have to keep our thumb, and with our index finger and the big finger, we have to pick the page. Then under that page, we have to put the whole hand
And we turn it over, and then we resume our position. That was very good. All right. Now the difficulty is if we've developed a habit that's not this way, that the habit will creep in. In some of my books on educational research, I've read that it takes 21 days to break a bad habit. 21 days. That's if you're trying to break the habit. What to speak of if you're not even trying. So it's very easy to forget. So sometimes the teacher will have to go, oh no. So that means, oh, what am I doing wrong? I have to turn the pages properly. Okay? So remember, books are expansion of God. God is Saraswati, and they're a gift from Lord Krishna, and we should be treating them with all respect. Hare Krishna. Lessons on how to hold the page, and how to hold the paper, and how to sit, and how to turn the page. If you are aware, of course, of the modes of nature, you can see, let's put your pencil down, you can see how these instructions help elevate a child to the mode of goodness. Everyone is born, actually, unless he's had an unusual previous life, he's born in ignorance. That's why we have education. So sitting up straight, treating the book with respect, turning the pages properly, elevates the consciousness and helps bring children to the mode of goodness. And the Brahminical platform is the one for learning. Mode of passion and mode of ignorance, much more difficult. Plus bad habits are acquired and retained. Once a habit is formed, very difficult to change. So it's very important from the very beginning that the proper habits are learned. Otherwise we have to undo learning and start again, and sometimes without success. Hare Krishna. This is not to be recorded. This is confidential. On page, 13 of the 5th edition of the Spalding book, at the bottom of the page, we see another topic that we're going to have demonstrated by the children. This topic is called the pencil grip. So now we have to, now we have to see what is the proper way to hold a pencil. All right, and we'll read the points first, and then we'll demonstrate. All right, now I'll be using my index finger to read. We'll see later why that's important. The middle finger and the thumb form a vise for holding the pencil. The index, or pointing finger, rests between the middle finger and the thumb. So here, if we read, listen carefully, you take your thumb, you may put your pencils down first. You take your thumb and your middle finger, and they are the vise. That means they pinch, they hold, and we curve them. We curve them like this. The index, or pointing finger, rests between the two. Rests between the middle finger and the thumb. All right, shall we repeat that? We have the thumb, middle finger, like a vise. A vise is something that bites, pinches, right? It holds something that the carpenter doesn't have to work on. Okay? Okay. And then the index finger, the pointing finger, or we'll learn in speed reading our accelerator, it rests between the two. So we have a position that looks like this, curved. Very good. And we tuck the other fingers underneath. Tuck the other like that. Right? So let's try that. Everybody check. Okay, you curve your fingers. Very good. Your thumb and your middle finger are the vise, and your index finger rests between the two, and you have your other little fingers tucked under. You have it. Very perfect. Right away, you got it. All right, we'll turn the page now. On page 14, the next point. The pointing finger curves, and the end of the nail sits on the pencil, where the paint ends, about an inch from the point. So if you take your pencil, if you give Mataji your pencil, here, all right, it says the pointing finger also curves, and the end of the nail sits on the pencil. Of course, we keep our nails shortened as devotees, so we don't keep long nails. So actually just the end of your finger sits on the pencil where the point ends. Now here that means where it's sharpened. We don't go too close to the lead, nor do we hold too far away. We hold the pencil right at the point where it's been sharpened, like that, okay? And then it goes on to say, all knuckles, including the thumb, should be bent, and the fingers and the thumb rounded to the same degree, like this, the way a cat's claws are rounded. Let a little light show through the under big knuckle of the little finger so that the writing hand can move easily. And we see the drawing here of the right hand and the left-handed position. It's in the book, very clearly shown. Okay, so we'll go over that again. The middle finger and the thumb. The index finger is curved, and it's touching the pencil at the point where the paint starts, where it has been sharpened. All the other fingers are curved under the hand. It's like a kitten's paw. You see how it's bent like this? Actually, if you look at drawings of famous calligraphers, masters, they hold their pens like this, and they use their little finger to brace themselves, to keep the point like that. If you see famous calligraphers, they use this like a pivot to balance. And a little light should show through. You can see in the drawing. Okay, you all have this? So everyone try now? Very good. You have your finger there at that point where the paint starts. Everything is curved, and all of your other fingers are curved under. So your hand should be like, she says, like a kitten's paw. Can you show us, Sarvagya, if you have it correct? And Pranav, keep your fingers all curved. All right, don't let them bend down like this because it makes it tense and tired. So curve everything. That's good. I'll read some more. The elbow, or the hinge, on the writing arm should be stationary. In other words, our right arm should not move around. It should be stationary. Write with the point of the pencil. The pencil should rest forward of the main knuckle. In other words, the pencil is forward. The other hand moves the paper enough so the pencil point remains in a small area, just forward of the center of the body. So the left hand is moving the paper, and the elbow fixes the pencil. So actually, the motion is coming with the left hand. And it's just, again, calligraphers do the same thing. You keep positioned, and you just work within a small area. All right? Again, hold the upper left-hand part of your paper, and show us how you hold your pencil. All right, and you have your pencil at an angle. You're holding it forward. The picture also demonstrates very clearly how the pencil should be held from all angles. You see it from the right side of the hand, from the front of the hand, and from the inside part of the hand. If you're left-handed, this is how the hand will be held. The book shows everything, and you can see how detailed the descriptions are. Again, if you have a copy of the book, it will be like following a very explicit recipe. Nothing is left to chance. Hare Krishna. Whims or motivation. Everything's parampara. So Spalding is the original teacher. So that's why we try to follow very carefully the parampara and her methodology. If we want the results, the degree to which we follow the system is the degree to which we reap the good results.
Can you repeat the three things again?
Yes.
About what Prabhupada said.
What Prabhupada said? Right. About, yes, that as far as following instructions. As in the Bhagavad Gita, Srila Prabhupada talked about the parampara. And he said the essential truth about the parampara is that all the teachings that originate with Lord Krishna are handed down through realized spiritual masters without change, without personally motivated change or personal whim. So to be following any systematic program means that we find out what the originator was advising, and we follow the model as carefully as possible if we want the same results. And that's true in our parampara. If we're receiving it through a bona fide realized spiritual master, it's as good as hearing it from the Lord Himself. So if we follow the instructions as they are given in the book, as it is, then we get the same results as if the originator of the system were here herself. That's the benefit. And that's why these people are so meticulous in describing every aspect of teaching. It's not just the Spalding method, it's how to teach the Spalding method. That's the difference. It's how to teach it, not just how to learn it as an adult. How do I teach it to someone else? Okay, this is a very important distinction here. Hare Krishna. That help? Again, on page 15, where we see the drawings, the illustrations of the hand position, the next topic is called paper. The paper is a very important consideration. The paper for writing. For beginners, through the second grade, now this would be someone like Pranav. He's in the first grade. Are you in the first grade, Pranav? Okay, and you're in the fourth grade, right? Or fifth, fourth grade? Okay. So for beginners, like Pranav, through the second grade, use paper with a 5/8 inch or 1.6 centimeter spacing between lines. Wider spacing forces children to draw letters instead of writing. So if the spaces are too big, the child actually has to start drawing the letters. Paper with a dotted middle line is not used because it is hard for children to touch the base line and the middle line, the midline. Instead, teach the concept of halfway between the lines and allow students time to visualize placement. For third grade and above, use paper with standard 3/8 inch or 1 centimeter spacing. So after the third grade, the lines can be closer together, and for the beginners, the lines can be further apart, but not so much, not so large. And she says the child starts drawing. Now, I have never taken the time to actually measure what's available here in Vrindavan. We use what paper's available to us. And at the very beginning, for smaller children, I have them double space and actually use both lines for baseline and guideline, because they're just trying to strategically learn how to make the forms. After that, as the child is able to write without so much guideline necessary, then they can use her half space method. But at the beginning, you'll see what I've had to adopt for 3-year-olds and up to the 5-year-olds, because they need a little bit more practice. So the paper again is going to be on what's available to you, if it goes by centimeters or inches here. And those of you who are homeschooling in India, and some of you here will be homeschooling in the West. So that's the topic on paper for writing. Hare Krishna. Be a magic slate. But still, it's good for us to cover the board, because I know I go into Hare Krishna. The next topic on page 15 is called position at the board. Now, in many schools, chalkboards are not really so much in use. You'll find whiteboards having taken their place. But Spalding does cover the proper position at the board and the proper way to hold a chalk. So we will read those. And here in our room, we don't have a chalkboard, nor do we have chalk, but I'll read it. Each child should stand comfortably close to the board and write no higher than the top of his or her head. So if you're at the board, you should not try to write above your head. You should try to write at the level that's just at the top of your head, no higher than that. It is helpful to use a wax pencil or a marker for a dry erase board to draw lines about 3 inches apart. So we'll see that in the temple. Often they'll have permanent lines on these boards, so the teacher has a guideline. The top line should be no higher than the tallest child. So again, be conscious of the child's ability. How tall is the child? Your tallest child, and your lines for writing should not be higher than his head. And it said, on the board, draw lines about 3 inches apart or 7.5 centimeters apart. Everything is very specifically explained. On the next page, in relationship to the board, is the chalk grip. When using a chalkboard, hold the chalk with 4 fingers along its length. So I will use this pencil to demonstrate the difference. Instead of holding it the way you hold a pencil, you cannot hold a chalk in the same way. You see here in the grip, this is a piece of chalk. It says hold the chalk with 4 fingers along its length. The thumb is on the opposite side. Write with the side of the point and not the point itself, to eliminate squeaking and slipping. Because there's nothing worse than the sound of screeching chalk. Right? So the chalk is held with 4 fingers on one side and the index finger on the other. And again, the curved position. Notice? Everything's curved. And we don't write with the point. We write with the side. Turn it to the side so that the chalk will not squeak nor slip. Okay? No, that's not correct. Let's have we'll practice with you now. Like this. Pretend this is a piece of chalk. Okay, 4 fingers on one side, and the thumb on the other, and you curve it. Okay. And you will write at the board like that. It's a little hard. That's correct. He's got it. No, other side. Yeah. Like
Keep
this.
your pen like
This. Right. Pretend that this is the board. Hold up your board. And then you would be. Okay. 4 of your fingers on one side, your thumb on the other, and everything is curved. Okay? Hare Krishna. Erasing. This also relates to the lesson on the chalkboard. Now this is interesting because we never really thought that we would teach how to erase the board. Erasing. Just 2 lines there again on page 16, beneath the picture of the chalk grip. When erasing, start where the writing began. Begin from the top and go down, moving up and down across the board in the direction we read and write. Now there's a reason from going from left to right, because this helps in terms of dyslexia. It helps children get used to seeing things in the proper order. Dyslexics tend to read and flip the image. So Spalding is very conscious because much of her research went into helping children who were dyslexic. So again, you start from where the writing began, and you go up and down, and you go from left to right. No, the other way, for your left. That's it. To right. Okay. Everything should be done in the direction with which we write. Hare Krishna. Okay. All right. We're jumping over a few sections in the book that are specifically aimed for the teacher, and we're going to move on to sections now that are directed to the student as well. Very, very important. I will be demonstrating first on the magic slate. I don't have a board here, but we'll be using the magic slate. We're going to introduce on page 12 an amazing concept. Such a simple one, but how important to precise handwriting. All right? So we see here at the bottom of the page, and we have here a little booklet. Maybe I can borrow this and hold it up. For one seminar I did at a Pathway School in Gurgaon, I put together the essential features of the Spalding book into a little pink booklet so that a teacher could have right at the fingertips the important information to teach the program. So here we see, we've done now the hand position right and left in the chalk grip. Now on the next page of the little guidebook, we're going to see 3 circles, and then we're going to see a circle and some straight lines, and then we're going to see how it's applied to make a precise print. Okay, the whole thing is precision. So this little book is a good companion, and we're going to make more copies of this for distribution so people can have an easy reference in the classroom. You don't have to carry the whole book along with you. You can just have a reference guide in a small little guidebook. All right? So here we have 3 circles. How many circles for now do we have?
How
many circles? 3. And this topic is called reference points. What do we call it? Tell me again?
Reference points.
Reference points. Okay, I'll read it first. And you'll see how important this is. It looks a little hard and it looks a little strange, but it's very important, so listen carefully. And it takes a little skill to do this one. Okay. Manuscript letters. By manuscript we mean print. And we all need to print. Even if we write in script, sometimes we need to print. There'll be legal documents where they'll tell you, please print your name. Right? So we know what your name is. Or there'll be instances when you do a chart, and you'll have to print the letters, not write in script. So everyone needs to know how to make good print. Important? Okay. Manuscript letters are made of a circle or parts of it and straight lines. You see how easy that is? I'll repeat. Manuscript letters are made of a circle or part of a circle and straight lines. Only 3 things. Is that very difficult? No. If you can make a circle perfectly, or part of a circle perfectly, or straight lines that are actually straight, you can combine them to make precise print. Manuscript letters. Explain to children that the clock face is used as a reference point for forming the following features. A circle, all letters that begin at 2 on the clock, and parts of letters. Okay, so this is now what we're going to do. If you look closely at the book, and again you have it also in your little mini guidebook, first circle shows the entire clock, starting from 1 around to 12. Okay, you boys can take a look at the little mini guidebook. Okay, your mother can, how do you turn your page? Okay, circle with 12 numbers, and then the next circle shows 4 numbers, and the next circle shows a dotted portion with 2 numbers. All right, the purpose for the clock is to create the numbers that are the reference points for the positions. Right? How else will I know on a circle where to place a particular starting or stopping point? So the position of the 2, the 10, the 8, and the 4, 2, 10, 8, and 4, these are the reference points for making letters. This is actually the only slightly difficult part of printing. And in the third circle, we see only the 2 and the 4, and a dotted line in between, which indicates we do not draw that part of the circle. We don't draw that part. Okay? So let me do this now on the board. We'll repeat it. Just watch again. This will be an enlargement, so everybody turn this way. I'll draw 2 straight lines here. Okay, what we see in our book, we see, first of all, we see a circle that's the clock. Okay, I'm going to do that again. I'm going to touch the base. Now, if you'll notice, you get an explanation later. Notice I go in the opposite direction. All right, if we have a clock, we have the 12 at the top, and we have the 6 at the bottom, and we have the 3 on the right side, and the 9, right, you see on the clock? And then we have 1 and 2 in between these numbers, and 4 and 5, and then we have 7 and 8 between the 6 and the 9, and then we have 10 and 11. Now, the 2, we put a little tick mark there, and the 4, and the 8, and the 10. These are the essential positions, reference points for perfect handwriting. This part's a little difficult, and at first children have a hard time with this. But once it's mastered, they can make perfect letters, so it's worth the effort. Say everyone 2, 10, 8, 4. Now you notice how I went in reverse. I didn't do 2, 4, 8, 10. So let's go backwards again. Let's say 2, 10, 8, 4. All right, and we're going to show that. I'll do the second circle, and if you check again in your mini book, and if you look again at the book, you'll see 2, then the other numbers have been dropped out. You see the 2 as a reference point, the 10 is a reference point, the 8 is a reference point, and the 4 is your reference point. So Malachi will draw the second circle. And I'll put in just the, that's around here, sorry. 2, and I put the line in 2, and then we do 10 on this side, and on this side 8, and on this side 4. And we go in this direction, 2, 10, 8, 4. This is the clock face without the other numbers. These numbers, the even numbers, 2, 10, 8, 4, are critical to remember and to use. They will tell you where to start and stop with many letters that use part of the circle. You'll start at 2, you'll start at 10, you'll start at 4, okay? The last circle in this demonstration shows only 2 numbers, 2 and 4. So I'll see if we have room here to do one more. And notice how I start my circle? I started at 2 o'clock. 2 o'clock? Can you look at your example and look here? 2, and I go over to the top, 10, 8, come to the baseline, 4, and I stop. I didn't stop the circle, right? Okay, and you notice here in the diagram they show you a dotted line here to indicate that that's not part of the circle. And the reference points are 2 and 4. So this is called the topic reference points. The first one is the clock face. The second one is these are the 4 points used most often. And the last one is this shows how the clock is used to write C from 2 to 4. So you get the first example, the letter C. It's a circle, but it starts at 2 and it ends at 4. So that way you can tell a child how to make a letter. Well, you start at 2. Go around and you come to 4. And I know when I did that little seminar at Pathway School with the first graders, I did a few. And then I would say, all right, now we'll do the next letter, D. And I said, who would like to tell me from what you know how to do it? And they all knew without my telling them. So children have intelligence. We tend to underestimate them. I said, what do you think? What do you think is the method to make? And they all explained it perfectly. The whole alphabet from A to Z. All I did was a few models, and they were able to do the entire alphabet perfectly. They explained, well, I think you'll start at 2, and then you go to 10, and then you'll come to 8, then you go to 4, and then you come straight up, and then you come, every letter, they figured it out. So nothing should be too intimidating if you see children pick it up quite quickly. Our problem is we tend to think they can't. Okay. On the next page, and it's demonstrated, I believe, in the little mini book.
Yes.
We have some more information here. Introduce or review the term midpoint as the reference point for halfway. And it says use 5/8 inch line paper. Explain the terms top line and baseline. So we have to explain top line and baseline. Okay, so Pranav and Sanjaya, we now have to explain in your book. If you're writing, there will be a line that's your top line and a line that's your baseline. So here, if you look on this board, this line, which one would be the top, Sarvagyan? Which one? Which is the top line? This line, right? Okay, this is the top line. And which is the baseline? Which one?
Which one is the base?
Which is the baseline? Are you going to point? Very good. Pranav, which is the top line? There you go. And which is the baseline? Baseline. We have to know what baseline means, the bottom line. There's the baseline. So it's important that the children know the terminology. This is the top line, and this is the baseline. So when we're speaking too, then we have a good reference, common vocabulary, top line, baseline. Okay. General handwriting rules. So we'll just say, we'll stop on this section right now, Hare Krishna, and we'll go into that one later.
You will teach the
Hare Krishna. There's a very important principle that's essential in all instruction, and that's called mastering the minimum. In terms of mastering the minimum, we mean that we analyze a task. We recognize its components, right? And then we master the components. And I use the example of ballet. Ballet has 5 steps that are learned, and then they're practiced until they're mastered. Then the complicated combinations can be done. If we don't know the basics and we have not mastered their execution, then something more complicated will not be possible. Or if it's done, it won't be very well done. So the system is that the child is taught the essential components, the basic features in handwriting, to the level of mastery. And then the alphabet is taught. Once the components have been mastered, then application to the formation of the letters is the next logical step. So everything is sequential. We don't jump. If we jump, then how will they form something complex without mastering something simple? Not possible. Or very difficult. But much easier that we master the minimum, perfect it, and then when we have to face complexity, it's the next logical step. Hare Krishna. On page 18, we'll see how specific the Spalding method is. Now we're under the topic entitled General Handwriting Rules. So everyone please listen attentively. All letters sit on a base line. Again, if you look at your little mini book, and you look at this page, you can see, here's the base line. Do you see it? And here's the top line. Can you see Pranav? All right. All letters sit on the base line, and they're just below the top line. Okay? Second rule. For letters that begin 2 on the block, rounding conforms to the curve of the circle. Every round letter should fit on the same sized clock. So letters that are circles or part of a circle begin at 2 and they fit the same size of the clock. You see here? And you'll see numbers now on these letters. Now you know what these numbers mean. Can you see in your little book? Are you able to see that, Shri Yashoda? Now you know what that means. They're the reference points. Do you see the 2 and the 4 and the 2 and the 10 and the 2, 10, 8, 4. So now it's clear. This gives the child a precise orientation. It's a compass. If I want to go in the direction of north, my compass will show what is north. If I want to make a perfect letter, I use these reference points, 2, 10, 8, 4. That way I have a precise location. Next point. Lines begin at the top. Okay, you able to pronounce? Lines, here are your straight lines. They begin at the top and they're drawn down. This is true of calligraphy. We never draw a line up. I've seen children develop that habit. Lines naturally come down, right? You pull the line. Okay? You want to sit up properly? Okay. We don't want to do that in our book. Let's turn the page. Okay. Letters or parts, here we see. All letters that go below the baseline go in the same distance below the baseline as above it. So the distance below a line is the same as the distance above the midpoint. Okay. Letters or parts of letters are 2 sizes. They are either tall or short. Right? So some letters are short. All right, can you see? We would call short letters. Which letter is a tall letter? Pranav? Which letter is tall letter? Which one is tall? Can you point? Which one's the tall letter? Which letter's tall? Is this a tall letter? Is this one a tall letter? How about this one? Is that tall? Does it go up? How about this one? It's a tall letter. Very good. These are short letters. And these letters have tails on them, right? They're descenders. So letters are either short, or what's the other type of letter? Or, what do we call them? Tall. Either short or tall. Tall letters or tall parts approach but do not touch the line above. Short letters or short parts are half as high. They begin at the midpoint between the height of a tall letter and the baseline. Dots and crossbars are tiny, formed just above the midpoint. Crossbars are formed in the direction in which we write. So if we have a letter that's dotted, it's above the line, just above the midpoint. And if we cross it, it's also just above the midpoint, and it's small. We don't make a big cross on a T. And we don't make it in the middle, we make it just above. We'll see that later as we learn the letter forms. Okay? So we have here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 general handwriting rules, and they're on page 18. So that again, you can instruct your children properly. Hare Krishna. The next topic on the page, put my glasses on here. We're on page 18 again in the book. Is called 6 features used to form 26 alphabet letters. Now I believe earlier we discussed the importance of mastering the basics, mastering the minimum. So here we see only 6 features will enable us to form the 26 letters of the alphabet. If we know, practice, and master these 6 features, which we'll be showing you how to teach in the book, the children will then, once we teach each individual letter, will be able to form perfect letters. But first they must know the forms, and they must practice them. And then they can do the more complicated step, which is put them into the alphabet. All right? So I'm going to draw 2 parallel lines here. Everybody see? It's a little difficult. We're working for the camera as well as the students. All right, I'm going to make 3 lines. I'm going to make it a little different. Actually, I'll do what's in the book. But for smaller children, I actually use 3 reference lines because they need that middle line for the guidance. Okay, here we go again. Top line. And what's the other line? What do we call the other line? Baseline, correct. Very good. Top line and baseline. He remembered. He's got a good memory. All right, we have to know 6 features. So repeat after me. The first feature, and it's a small letter. Remember, the small letters are half size. Tall letters are twice the size, okay? Is the circle. All right, everyone say circle? Everybody knows what a circle is, right? So our first feature is a circle. All right, you don't have to make one right now because we want to explain exactly how. So the first feature out of 6 is what, Pranav? What do we call this? What feature is this? It's a circle. Very good. Our next feature is called short, straight line. It's the same height as the circle. It's a short letter. So right now we have the circle, and we have the second feature. What's the second feature? Short, straight line. All right, and when we were doing body language for bigger classes, we would make circle. Everyone, show circle. And we would say short, straight line. Straight line. Okay. The next feature is tall, straight line. Okay, tall, straight line. Okay, now this one does not quite touch the top. Almost. Tall, straight line. Easy. Anything hard so far? Circle? Short, straight line? And tall, straight line. Very good. The fourth feature, all right, this one is a descending line. That means it goes below the same distance as above. So we call this the long straight line. It goes below the line. Now nothing in here is very hard. It's just either different length or different position. So now we have 4 features. Circle, repeat, circle, short straight line, tall straight line, and descending long line. It goes below the line, you see? Okay? 4 out of 6. Next one. Very simple, starting at the left, going to the right at a 45 degree, is the slanted line. That's our next feature. Can you say slanted line? Slanted line, okay. Everybody, circle, short straight line, tall straight line, descending long line, and slanted line. Very good. And the next one is the little horizontal line. It's like that. Simple. None of these is hard. They're just a different length and a different position. Very good. Slanted line. He figured out the body language. You see, they start picking up on it. You'll be surprised once they start the alphabet, they figure out what's coming next. You don't really have to say too much after a point, you know. You watch with the spelling list, they catch the rules before you say them. They look impossible to learn, but yes, they detect them. Okay, everybody, let's do the body language again. Circle, short straight line, tall straight line, descending long line, slanted line, and horizontal line. Okay, who wants to teach it by himself now? Who wants to do it by himself? Who can do it? Who can do the signals, okay? So again, what are the 6 features of the alphabet?
Circle,
Okay,
short straight line, tall straight line, descending long line, slanted line, and horizontal.
very good. So you see, even a student, let's try Pranav, he's a little younger. Pranav, can you do the 6 features of your handwriting?
Circle, short straight line, long line, tall straight line, descending long line, slanting line,
Horizontal line.
You see a horizontal line?
Yeah, speak
Horizontal line, that means horizontal line. Very good. He got almost all 6. He had 5 out of the 6. If one masters these 6 features, then the alphabet is the next logical step. Hare Krishna. Now I actually started working individually with the children. Now the little children get to actually put some skills. They'll have to watch a model first, and then when we have the second stage of the Collins method, then they work under coaching. So first is the modeling. So you have to pay attention. Are you watching Pranav? Ready? And you watch first. For beginners, I actually took advantage of the lines. I did not try to work midpoint. I felt that they needed to see in a large form, to see the formation. And with very little ones, we actually practiced on plain paper with big circles, and they would have to practice staying on a magic marker line, getting used to controlling, having good hand-eye coordination. They did a lot of practice. I would use a broad magic marker, 3-year-olds, and they would have to practice even tracing, following within a line, until they got used to coordinating eye and hand, all right, and could make good straight lines and good circles. So that's not so essential with this age group. So teaching has to be adjusted to the age level and the kind of capability of the particular child. Okay, so take into account a learner. I would start at the top red line, and I would count this as 1, 2, and then I would put a little cross, a little X on the third line. I would say 1, 2, 3, and I put a little X there, and then I would say 1, 2, and then when I said 3, I put a little X, and then when I say 1, 2, 3, and I put a little X. And we would go all the way down the page saying 1, 2, and then at 3, we put just a tiny little X on, that was the next base line. Okay? Then I would say 1, 2, then 3 with a little X, okay? Then 1, 2, and 3 with a little X. Okay, everyone say 1, 2, and then you do 3 with a little X. And 1, 2, and 3 with a little X, and 1, 2, and then we run off the page on that. Now, sometimes in our teaching, we have to make adjustments, giving the level of the child. For the most part, whatever we feel is going to help the child. You know, sometimes we had to use magic marker samples for them to stay in the line and practice. In the column, in the space, very good. We got the spacing right. We did 1, 2, and then 3. It's got a spacing right. How did you do? Okay, you got your spacing. So the teacher, in the little margin space, puts the sample for practice. So in the first feature is the circle. So the teacher puts a circle, 2, 10, 8, 4, back up to 2. Puts a circle there. Now I want you to just wait for a second, okay, before you start. So that each child has a model for practice across the row. So they know in this row I will be practicing the circle. And we do not repeat 20 circles before we go to the next feature. Spalding's very clear about that. Then they start to get mechanical. We go to the next feature and then we try our row again. So this is practice for them. Then we go down to the next X, which is our next baseline. And our next feature is the short straight line. So we use the guidelines in this case. We start with the top and we drop a perpendicular to the baseline. So then we have our second feature. And what's the second feature? The short straight line, right? Short straight line. So in the margins, I put the model for them before they began. Then I dropped down to the third baseline, and at this point I used again the guideline. I started at the top, and I dropped a long line. Remember, we draw the lines down, so we have the tall straight line. Okay, so the next sample for the child is the tall straight line. Okay. If we drop down to the next baseline, we start at the midpoint, right? And we drop down below the line. So this is the descending long line. And again, it's just a long line. You can see it's identical to this one, but the position according to the baseline changes. Descending long line. Okay, so we have repeat circle, short straight line,
Short straight line.
tall straight line,
Tall straight line.
and descending long line.
Descending long line.
All right. The next feature is the slanted line. And if you notice, it starts from the top and drops down, goes to the right. Very good, the slanted line. So on the next line, I start at the left and I drop a slanted line down to the baseline. So we have the next feature, the slanted line. Can you see it now? Okay. So we have the circle. What's this one? Short straight line.
Short
Short straight line. And this one? And this one? And this one is what? Slanted line. And the next feature, we drop down to the next baseline, and we go by the midpoint, and we put a little short horizontal line above, a little bit above. You see how it's a little bit above the midpoint? That's the cross on the T. A little bit above, just the T's are not crossed right in the middle. A little bit above. Okay? So we have here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 features. Okay? And then we help the child do a few and then let them cross. So we're going to now put Pranav to work. And then we'll try with you. Okay, you ready? So we hold our pencil properly. Okay. Okay. So now, he didn't get too much chance to practice the 2, 10, 8, 4. That's required too. We have to do a lot of practice, but we're going to jump right now into the features. Okay, so we say 2, touch the line. Let's repeat, touch the line.
2, touch the line,
Say 10, 8, baseline,
baseline,
4, back to 2. So that's your circle. Okay, now let's practice the next one together, and then you'll try by yourself. Short, straight line. Say it. Okay, short, straight line. Now, even when we, at the beginning, did our spelling list, we would reinforce these steps initially until they mastered them. Even when we were doing our spelling list, each letter would reinforce the instructions of creating the letter. So at all times, they're being reinforced. Okay, the next, tall, straight line. Okay, we start at the top, and we pull the pencil down to the baseline. Repeat, tall, straight line. Very good, 3 out of 4, 3 out of 6, okay. The next sample is descending long line. Now that starts at the midpoint. As you see, here's the X, this is your baseline. Starts at the midpoint, and we drop the line down below, same distance, okay. Next one is slanted line. Okay, say slanted line. Okay, we start at the midpoint, and we draw a slanted line to the baseline. Okay. And our last feature is the horizontal line. Say horizontal line.
Horizontal.
Horizontal line. It's this one, right? You held your arm straight. Horizontal line. Okay. Okay. Now, so we draw a little short horizontal line just above the midpoint. Wow. So now we've done it together. First, I did it by myself. Then we've done it together. Now we're going to let you try one. Okay, do you want to try one more together first? Okay, we'll do one more set together, okay? And then we'll let him try one. A little bit of practice. Okay, remember with the clock, we start at 2 and we go to 10, 8, 4. We go in reverse. Say 2 o'clock. Touch the line. 10 o'clock. 8 o'clock. Baseline. 4 o'clock. And back to 2. That's a nice round cookie. Huh? Okay, next is the short, straight line. Say? See, you just keep reinforcing it every time you do it. And then eventually, that's what they think. But a lot of repetition, a lot of reinforcement at every stage. Even through the spelling, and that way it's fixed. The idea is you master it till it's indelible. They see a line, they say short, straight line. At the beginning, it's a little difficult. But they will forget it unless it's repeated. So we say short, straight line. Now we say how to do it. Start at the midpoint. Say, start at the midpoint.
Start at the midpoint.
The midpoint. And we pull the line down to the baseline. Okay. Can you say that? Pull the line to the baseline, right? Okay. So now we say tall, straight line. We start at the top.
Start at the top.
Repeat.
Start at the top.
Say start at the top. Okay, and we drop the line
Drop the line. Speak
to the baseline.
Drop the line.
To the baseline. Very good. You can see how by articulation children actually learn to speak. Unless they're asked to articulate, they won't, and then they can't speak well. The next is the descending long line. You see this one? Good. You said that like a professional. That was really good. Okay, here we go. So we start at the midpoint,
Start at the midpoint.
and we drop the line below the baseline. See, this is the
Drop the
baseline.
line.
Drop the line below the baseline.
Below
the
the
baseline. Okay, now the next feature. What's this one? Do you remember?
What is that line?
Slanted line. This is the slanted line. Very good. So again, we make a slanted line together. 45-degree angle. Okay? Slanted line. All right. What's our last one? Do you remember the name of this one?
Horizontal line.
Horizontal line. Good for you. And that's a little short line, like the horizon, just above the line. 6.
Horizontal line.
Okay. Now I'd like you to switch places with your brother. And I want your mother to do one with your son.
Okay.
Okay? And you come over here. And then we'll let you try with each of them together, coaching. Because coaching means you're with them. Okay? Okay, so you switch. You take your book, and Manaji is going to help you. You help him, and you have to make him articulate. Okay? So this is your first one. Here's this extra pencil. All right. First, I'll put the models in your book. Now, you won't have so much trouble. You're older. You'll understand both in practice, and you'll remember more. You see, littler ones take a little longer. You'll see the age group makes a difference in how much you have to put in the preliminaries. And with very little ones, a long time in just practice, with much simpler methods even. Okay, here we go. So here's the first one. Is your 2, 10, 8, 4, and back to 2. You see how nice that is for making a circle? They know exactly. Just say 2, 10, 8, 4. Back to 2. Okay, so we have our first feature, which is what? It's a circle. And our second feature, and I want you now, here's another thing that I would do with my students. I would make them speak in sentences. The tendency is to give a one-word answer, but they don't learn to speak that way. They always like to be a little bit lazy. So then I would ask them to repeat the entire sentence. And that way they start articulating on an adult level. Okay. All right, ready? So now when I say the tall straight line, and whenever I say, you remember every word and see if you can repeat every word, not just one word. Tall, short straight line. Start at the midpoint. You say.
Start at the
And make him repeat exactly everything you say. Drop to the baseline.
Drop to the baseline.
Good.
Start
All right.
at the midline.
The next feature is the tall straight line. Start at the top line. Drop down 2 spaces to the baseline. Now you see what happens is the child actually at every stage is conscious of what he's doing. Because if he can articulate, then you know that he's conscious of what he's doing. If he cannot articulate it, he may not understand it. That's why articulation is considered an essential component of this instruction. If the child is just sitting there after a certain point and you're not in a position to check, can he express what he's doing, application is not necessarily going to happen. Okay, our next feature is the descending long line. Can you say?
Descending long.
The descending long line. Now, I want you to say everything. The next feature
The next feature
is the descending long line.
it is the descending long.
Right, get them to say, to speak like an adult. They can do it. The whole idea is we get above the one-word baby answers, because the tendency, you'll see in class, children will give you a one-word answer, and they don't develop the ability to speak. Okay, so what we're really teaching now is oral communication as well. And if they can explain it, it's proven that they can do it. Okay, are we ready now? The next feature
The next feature
is the slanted line.
is the slanted line.
We start at the midpoint,
We started at the midpoint.
and we draw a line at an angle,
We start to draw a line.
We drop at the center.
and an angle to the baseline.
Okay.
No, it was
Very
We'll have to